Welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Laura Winnie, and I'm the DuPage County Animal Services educator. Welcome. So tonight we are going to talk about fostering. Now, this is going to be a general overview of fostering and ways that you can help your foster animals succeed. We will talk a little bit about the specifics for DuPage County Animal Services requirements for fosters, but really any of this advice is good no matter what organization you are fostering with. So what are we going to cover tonight? Well, we're going to go over the basics. We're going to talk about those crazy first days, and then we're going to talk about ways to make sure that your foster succeeds. Little bit of Zoom housekeeping before we dive right into it. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat box. I'm not going to be checking the chat box until the end of the program when we'll have time for Q&A. The program should run about 50-ish minutes, and I'll set aside a time for questions at the end. But if at any point you have a question, go ahead and throw them into the chat box and I'll get to them at the end. Everybody is currently muted. Please keep yourselves that way so we don't have any audio interference. We are recording this presentation to post to our YouTube page. And if everybody can take a few minutes at the end of the program, I'm going to throw in the link to our program survey. I would really appreciate it. We're always looking for ways to improve and get feedback, and also to get ideas for future programs. So it's a really quick couple question survey. Hopefully I will remember at the end to remind you, and I really appreciate the feedback. So that aside, let's go ahead and dive in to fostering. So what is fostering? Well, honestly, it is a vital resource. So fostering is when a rescue organization places animals in homes for the intention of them being adopted out to other people after they've spent time in that home. And this, I can't emphasize how important this is, not just to the rescue groups, but also to the animals. One, it frees up space in the shelters and allows rescue groups and shelters to save even more animals. It also provides more personalized care because every shelter I know of is understaffed. We wish that there was one-on-one attention that we could provide to every single animal. We do the best that we can, but that's just not a reality of the shelter life. So animals are going to get more personalized care when they're in a home. It also gives them more space to roam around in. I mean, and even the smallest apartment is going to be bigger than a kennel space. And a lot of fosters will also supplement with supplies. Now, this is not always a requirement, but for some rescue groups it is, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. It also frees up staff time and other volunteer time with that daily care and support of the animal so that they can pursue avenues for adoption, for rescuing other animals, for marketing, for fundraising to get the needed supplies that are absolutely essential. So fostering, I cannot emphasize enough, really is a vital resource to rescue groups and to shelters. In terms of which animals are more likely to go into foster or that shelters and rescue groups will seek foster care for, there are mainly two categories of fostering. There's the long-term and the short-term. So long-term is you pick the animal up and you have them until they're adopted. Pretty much. That's the idea for that long term. The short term may be just because maybe they're going through a medical thing and they need better monitoring or specialized care. Maybe they're really little, like little orphan baby kittens, little orphan baby puppies, and they need that, every couple of hours feeding and help that way. So that might be a reason that we seek fostering for them. Maybe they are experiencing extremely high levels of stress in the shelter and are starting to act out. Maybe they need specialized behavioral help. that will help get them adopted if they can get the support that they need. There are also some rescues that are strictly foster based, so they do not have any kennel space and they rely on volunteer foster homes in order to save animals. That was the case for a rescue that I used to work with down in Florida. They did have alternate places. They used basically a chain pet hotel when they brought in dogs, and there was a little bit of overlap between when they brought in dogs and when they had foster placement. But it was not ideal because one, that's really, really expensive, and two, that's not ideal for the dog. Not every dog loves doggy daycare, and it's going to be very stressful for a dog who doesn't like doggy daycare to be forced to be there, right? Animals do best in a home. So now that we have a general idea of what fostering is fostering right for you? Because it's not right for everybody, and that's okay. Just know that when you bring a foster animal into your home, everyone in the household will be involved. Even if they say they won't, they will, in all sorts of ways. I mean, it's really hard to not play with a kitten when you have a foster kitten in your house. It's really hard not to want to give a treat to the dog. It's just, I obviously love animals, so I can't even imagine not wanting to. But, you know, everyone will be involved. And it's understanding that you need to know what your goal is for fostering. Are you fostering with the hope of trying out this animal before you adopt them? Is that your end goal, is adoption? Okay, that's fine. There are definitely places for that, but being upfront about that goal is very important for all involved. Now, where you live, there might be pet restrictions. There are some rentals who make you fill out a ton of paperwork and fill out a fee and pay a fee every single time that you bring a new animal into your home. So that is very cost prohibitive for fostering if you have to pay a pet deposit for every single individual animal that's coming in. So fostering may not be right for you there. If you have resident pets, are they going to be okay with other animals? What about family members or any frequent guests that you have over? Do they have allergies? Are they fearful? Are they okay interacting with these animals? And who will be responsible for their care? These are all questions to consider. And yes, as I said before, that even the smallest apartment is going to be bigger than a kennel space. Some animals are going to require a separate space. So if you have resident pets, you are going to have to keep them completely 100% separated for at least the little bit amount of time at the beginning. Sometimes for the entire time. It really depends on each individual foster animal and your situation. Also, can you transport the animal for medical care and for appointments? A lot of times the shelters or the rescues will set up adoption appointments. You'll need to be able to drop off the animal or even attend these appointments. So that's something to consider as well. What does your schedule look like? And also understanding that when a foster comes into your home, you are not just providing a roof. You are not just providing the house. Many, many foster animals come in with specialized needs. They may not be trained to do all sorts of things, even some of the basic stuff like potty training. That might be something you want to work with them. Socialization, making sure that they understand that people are good, people give food. That's awesome. If they have special medical needs, that is also very important. If you have a diabetic cat that's going to need insulin injections, is that something that you're prepared to work with? Understanding your own limitations is going to make you much better prepared for the realities of fostering. And don't get me wrong, fostering is awesome. It is awesome for the animal and it is awesome for you, because the best place for a pet is in a home. period. Like, there is no question about that discussion. It really allows the animals to show us who they are, because shelter and kennel environments are stressful. And if you are super, super stressed, you're not going to show off who you truly are. And in fact, you might develop some behaviors that are less than desirable. So it really gives them that chance to relax and be the best cat they can be the best doggy they can be. It also gives the animal the opportunity to get that one-on-one help that they may need. So that training, that will help make them more adaptable. Knowing the basics will definitely help. And also it builds trust. So one of the scariest things about being in a shelter is that there's constantly strangers coming in, and we do our best to build that trust. We call it the power of cookies, right? Where when we come into the room, we're throwing treats and letting them know people are awesome. But in a home, they get to experience that 24/7, and there's no match for that. For you, the benefits, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, just having the love and companionship of an animal that is in need, that is homeless, that has nowhere to go. It also gives you access to resources and supports. So let's say you've always wanted to adopt a bunny, but you've never even touched one. That's great. It's awesome that you love bunnies that much that you're willing to take that leap. However, it's good to start small and to have people on call who can help you. Okay, so that is awesome. And it does give you an idea of how these animals can fit in your lifestyle. I always joke with my husband because we have 2 dogs and a cat. And I've always said, oh, wouldn't 3 dogs and a cat be great? Like, then we have a nice round number. And he says that I would have 3 dogs, a cat, and no husband. So fostering gives us that nice middle ground, because we get to bring in that dog who needs additional support, and it lets us, it gives us all the warm fuzzies, right? Because we can see the progress that these animals make in our home. And we really do know that we are saving lives. So, okay, we got all the warm fuzzies of fostering. We know that we want to do it. What's next? Well, you definitely want to look around at different organizations in your area, because not every organization is the same. So, for example, if you are looking for a foster to adopt situation, it's important to talk to your organization about if they allow that. Not every organization gives their foster first dibs. That is very, very important to know. If you are set on adoption, you bring an animal into your home, you fall in love, and then you find out that the policy is that the adopters come first, fosters come second, that's kind of heartbreaking. So it's really important to understand that stuff up front. Also, you want to understand other philosophies, training philosophies within your rescue organization, and make sure that they fit with your training philosophies. Because let me tell you, you can say you'll go along with something that's different than your own, but it always comes out, right? Dogs and cats are like little kids. They're going to rat you out at the first instance. So making sure that you are in that same philosophy. At DuPage County Animal Services, for example, we believe in force-free training with positive reinforcers. That is a very, very big deal for us. It is something that we talk to our fosters a lot about, because we want to make sure that we are handling our animals as humanely as possible. You also want to know what their return policy is. And that's a very clinical term when you're talking about a living animal, but it is important, because let's say you bring an animal into your home and you get overwhelmed, or an emergency happens in your family and all of a sudden you need to leave town. It happens, okay? Is somebody else going to be able to take that animal? Are you going to need to wait until another foster home opens up? What's going on? So it's good to know what the return policy is, so that if an emergency happens, in the back of your mind, you're like preparing what steps to take. It's also good to know if they have one location, multiple locations, how far is that away from you, and what their scheduling looks like. For example, one of the rescues that I used to work with, they had adoption events on Saturdays. And at the time, I worked every Saturday. We made it work. I was lucky enough to have a husband who was willing to go to these adoption events and help our fosters get adopted. But I missed out on a lot. I missed out on seeing them go to their forever home and getting to chat with the people, and also the camaraderie of chatting with other fosters. So that was a choice that I made. But looking back, I may have chosen another organization that better suited my schedule so that I could fully participate. You also want to know their quarantine and isolation protocols. This is very, very important if you have other pets in the home. And again, that space thing. Are you going to be able to keep 2 dogs completely separate for the entire time that they're there, if that's what that dog needs? At minimum, they're going to need that decompression time, which we'll talk about later. Also, what are the expectations for the organization? Are they expecting you to provide the food, the supplies? Are they expecting you to dispense medications? What are the general things that they want their fosters to be able to do, and are you comfortable with them? So understanding, are you supplying the supplies, or are they supplying the supplies? And if they're giving it, where is it and how often can you get it? Is that going to be okay with your schedule? I will tell you, it can be super annoying to make a run, and I've done this, and I work there, and I get my foster home and I unpack the bag that I packed and I forgot a bully stick. Okay, well, maybe we can get into like, okay, well, you know what? My dog has bully sticks. That's fine. I'll just use my dog's bully sticks. I don't need to wait and give the shelters bully sticks. But understanding that if you don't have those supplies on hand because you have other animals, making sure that you know, like, okay, in a pinch, if something happens, can I get to it? For example, if you have a resident dog and it loves cat food and you did not secure the kitty food for your foster kittens, okay, all the kitten food is gone. What are we going to feed these kittens? Where can we get more supplies? It's 9 o'clock at night. What can we do? All right. Also, for the medical care, there are some animals that are going to need more specialized care than others, making sure that you're, one, going to get the training for that if you're expected to do that, and 2, that you have that backup person to call, that you know who your contact person is to rely on. So in general, the role of the foster is going to be different with every organization, but typically you are going to be asked to provide a clean space where the animal can decompress in. For DuPage County Animal Services, we also require that that space be smoke-free for the health of our animals. This is going to be different with other rescue organizations. So if you do have any smokers in your household, it's important to know what those expectations are. You're going to need to provide the daily care, feeding, grooming, walks, exercise, enrichment, medicines as needed. You're going to need to transport them from the locations for the medical care and for the adoption appointments. You are also expected to help market your foster animal. And that's a weird term to use, but it 100% is true, because nobody's going to know your foster animal like you do. Okay. We're also going to rely on you to observe and report changes in behavior, changes in medical needs, in health conditions, all that kinds of stuff. Because again, you're the eyeballs on the animal. So you're going to be the most reliable person to provide information. Other organizations may ask their fosters to talk to or meet with potential adopters. They may also ask you to fundraise and provide community outreach. Some groups do not have a centralized location, so they rely on going to rescue group meetings at pet stores, at parks, places like that, where you'll be requested to bring your animal. Sometimes you can just drop them off and then the event person will take over from there. Other times you are expected to stay to, again, talk with and meet potential adopters. Now, this is the part that always gets me when I tell people that I foster. Everybody that I talk to says, oh my gosh, I couldn't foster. I could never say goodbye. And to me, I understand where they're coming from, and I understand that they're trying to show how much they love animals. But what I hear is, so you'd rather an animal was heartbroken in a shelter by itself than you be sad a little bit when you ask them to leave? Because that's the reality, is without our fosters, these animals would have a much tougher time. So I love this saying on the slide because it says, saying goodbye to a foster means my heart will break a little, so theirs will never have to break again. And that's it. That's the feelings right there. Yes, it absolutely can be hard to say goodbye, but you succeeded. If they go into an adoptable home, you did your job. And honestly, that's the most rewarding part for me, because I saved their life and they're going somewhere where they're going to be loved and have a great time. Now, white elephant in the room, foster fails happen. Okay. Sometimes you just fall so in love that you cannot say goodbye. That's fine. It is important to be honest as soon as you can. Okay. Because you need to be able to talk to your group and you need to take a good hard look at, like, all right, I love this animal, but can I keep this animal? Because sometimes we're fostering because we don't want to have those permanent animals in our life. So understanding how we're feeling, being honest with ourselves, is going to be very, very important, because the key here is there are always more animals in need. And while we perfectly 100% understand foster fails make us a little sad, because that means there's one less home that we can send animals in need to. Okay. So there are definitely ways to prepare your household for saying goodbye. One is how we talk about it from the very beginning. We always coach it in terms of they're going to stay with us for a little while. You know, we don't refer to them as our pets. We always talk about them as our foster pet. This is especially important for kids in the household. And we want to focus on the good. Like, oh, look at how many animals need our help. We can help them, but only if we find them all adoptive homes. Our goal is to say goodbye. There are great ways to create traditions for saying goodbye. For example, there are some that do a photo, and then that photo goes into an album. So you have a picture of your family with every single foster in the album. Create a scrapbook. There are some who write a little letter to their new adoptive family and say, oh, this is Binky the bunny, and she loves blank. And, you know, telling them all the stuff that you've learned about this animal and telling them, thank you so much for adopting Binky. She is a fabulous, fabulous rabbit. She's going to be great. You know, there are wonderful ways that you can build those traditions in to help make the transition a little bit easier. So we've talked about the end part of fostering. Let's talk about the first part, because it can be a little shaky in those first couple days. So, you know, being prepared is going to be a good first step. Even before they come into the home, if we're ready to go, making sure that we have a safe space set up for them. And this is going to be key, because transitions are scary. You know, we can't just talk to our foster animals and tell them, oh, no, you're going to a home that loves you, and every Wednesday night we get treats. You know, I mean, we wish we could tell our foster animals, like, no, this house is the bomb. Don't worry about it. We got this. You're going to love it here. We can't tell them that. So instead, we can provide them a safe space for when they first arrive that is going to be their haven, especially in those first couple days. You want to make sure that they have everything they need in that safe space. Also, make sure that it is pet proofed and easy to clean, because even the best house trained animals are going to have accidents during periods of high stress. We want to make sure that they're easy to clean. We want to make sure that they can't destroy things if they are left unsupervised, or that they could hurt themselves on objects or things like that. It's also important to know what the noise level is like in this part of your home. Nice, quiet place, kind of out of the way, is going to be best. Like a spare bathroom can be great for cats, kittens, and small dogs. For others, you're going to have them in more open parts of the house, but you want to make sure that they have that safe space within. So, for example, a crate within a room. So if you're crate training that dog, it can go into the crate. And what I love about crate training is it kind of creates this den atmosphere for the dogs. I have had great success in crate training. My beagles, one of them is very, very high stress. He's a sensitive soul, and he puts himself in his crate. Whenever he feels just a little overwhelmed, he will go and put himself in his crate. The biggest example I have is anytime I watch a horror movie and I'm reacting to the horror movie, I am gasping, I am moving, I'm jumping. First he'll try to comfort me, and then when I keep watching, he's like, all right, loser, you're on your own. I'm getting out of here. This is terrifying. And he just goes and puts himself in his crate where he feels nice and safe, and that is awesome. It has everything he needs in there to feel safe, and I make sure that he feels safe in that space. I never reach in there and pull him out. Even if I need him, I will call him out. I will use treats, but I never do anything unpleasant in his crate, and I never invade that space unwanted. I always ask him to come out so that he sees that space as his. It is his space. My cat is terrified of thunderstorms. Her safe space is underneath the chair in the living room. So anytime there's a thunderstorm, I know exactly where she is. And even if I need her, I never reach under there and lift her out, because I want her to know that that is a safe space for her. Now, we want to make sure that the people in our household brush up on body language, because again, we can't talk to the animals. They can't use words to talk to us, but they 1000% can communicate with us with their body language. So understanding signs of stress. One of the ones that surprised me the most when I started working at the shelter was for dogs and cats was the lip lick. When they just lick their tongue out, lick their lips, and it goes back in. That as a signal of stress surprised me. I just always thought it meant they were thirsty or that they were licking their lips after a meal, but it is a very commonly overlooked stress signal. So knowing what to look for will make it easier to tune in to what our animals are feeling. And it's important to have a plan. Now, this plan needs to be created in conjunction with your organization. So understanding, are you doing that short-term fostering? Are you doing the medical fostering and then the animals going back? Are you planning on keeping this in your home as long as everything goes okay until they get adopted? What does that plan look like? Now, decompression is key to success. It is vital for animals to have time to adjust. And don't expect an animal to come into your home and then all of a sudden flip a switch and be happy, because everything is new and everything is scary. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. So you want to give them plenty of downtime. When you are socializing with them, when you're exposing them to new things, you want to do it in a positive manner. So, for example, if you have a dog and you introduce them to the lawnmower, that's really, really scary. Have some treats on hand to show them that the lawnmower is loud, it's scary, but nothing bad's going to happen to you. So we want to make sure that we're doing all of that in a positive way. And routine is very important. Animals thrive on routine, human animals included. We do great with routine. It's fabulous to know, okay, we're going to get up around this time, and then we go for walkies, and then we have our breakfast, and then we sleep for a couple hours, and then we get a snack, and then we do some training, and then we get dinner, and then we play in the yard, and then we get our treats, and then it's bedtime. Every single day, we do the same thing, same thing, same thing. That helps stability. That helps them stabilize in their life. When they know what to expect, it's less stressful for them. So routine is going to be key, especially in those first couple days, okay? Now, every animal is unique, but generally speaking, the rule of 3 is 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. Now, this is applied to adopting an animal, but 100% applies to fostering an animal too. Because in the first few days, very high stress levels. The animal is going to be very overwhelmed with their new surroundings. They're not going to even show their true personality because they're not even going to be comfortable enough to show you who they really are. Many animals may not want to eat during those first couple days because that's a response to stress. They may shut down, they may hide, all sorts of things might happen there. Now, it takes about 3 weeks with an established routine for them to feel more comfortable and realize that this is a safe space. Okay. So, a lot of times when we're fostering, we may not have them that long. So, it's important to understand how scary all of this is for them. And when they're doing things that we don't understand, it's not coming from a place of defiance. They're not being jerks. They're not trying to show us that they're the boss. It's because they're freaked out. And what do we do when we're freaked out? Well, we do whatever we can think of to make us feel better. And sometimes that's not the greatest. Sometimes it's peeing on everything, so we're surrounded by our own smell. Great. That's exactly what we want, right? But understanding that it doesn't mean that they've been abused in the past. It doesn't mean that they're untrainable. It just means that they're going through a period of very high stress, and we need to give them time. We need to let them kind of just ride it out, stick with our routines, stick with those positive socializations. So it can take up to 3 months for an animal to feel completely comfortable in a home. And I will say that looking at these behaviors that you see in the first couple days and couple weeks can be very important when passing on information to a potential adopter. Like, oh yeah, for the first 3 days in my home, he peed on everything. Then we learned the routine and we got on a schedule and we were good to go. That's really great information because chances are they will repeat that transitional stress behavior again. So letting the adopter know, hey, this is probably going to happen, but it'll pass. It'll be okay, is going to be very reassuring for them. So that day 1, every transition is stressful. And we can't tell them like, no, you went from a really stressful place to a home that's awesome. It's going to be great. No. Think about like the first time you went to school or a new workplace. You don't know where the bathrooms are. You don't know what time things are going to be. You don't even know if the people around you are nice people or not. I mean, you could be working with a bunch of jerks and everybody's smiling to your face, but secretly stabbing you in the back, depending on the workplace. I've had some bad workplaces in the past, so I can speak from experience. And you don't even know if you're going to like it there. So you're just trying to stumble your way through. Think about how much more stressful that would be if you couldn't talk to anybody about it. That's where animals are coming from. Okay. They don't know what's going on, but they're trying to make the most of it. So, very common behaviors that we'll see in the first couple days: hiding, bolting, and escape attempts. This is a big one. So, when you are transporting an animal from the shelter, from a rescue transport, anything into your home, it's really important to be extra vigilant. Double check those leashes and harnesses, double check those carriers, because they're in panic mode. Help, I'm being kidnapped kind of thing. They're gonna run for it if they can, because this is really scary and they want a little bit of control, so they're gonna try to bolt. Okay. I will admit that we lost a rescue within seconds of my husband opening the door. This was back in Florida when we worked with the rescue. He came in and he was bam. He slipped out of his harness. We didn't think to check it in the car. He slipped out of his harness and he was down the street. Now, luckily we were able to get him, but it didn't help our relationship that one of the first things I did upon meeting him was lunge at him and grab him around the back legs. That's not a polite meeting, and it probably damaged our relationship a little bit. He was also very, very timid. I will always remember this dog. His name was Merle, and he looked like a Merle. He was like a Beagle Basset mix. And anybody who has experience with hound dogs, he didn't eat for the first 2 days. He didn't eat when we were in the room for the first week. He wouldn't take treats from my hand until about 3 weeks in. So we did have him for a long time, and it took a long time to build his trust. And he came from a situation where he hadn't been around a lot of people. He was a hunting dog. He had been around a lot of dogs. He was super comfortable with my dogs, not super comfortable with people. So we really had to work at building that trust. And I felt so bad that the first thing I did was have to lunge at him and grab him, because we didn't think to check the harness to make sure his harness was snug enough. You might also have a lot of vocalizations in the first days. This might be especially true for cats, especially when they're not on your schedule yet. Naturally, cats are going to be more active during the night, and if they're freaked out, they're going to cry. So that can be a very common thing for cats coming into a new household, is a lot of vocalizations, and especially in inopportune times. Again, they may not eat, they may not drink, they may not even go to the bathroom. They might just shut everything down out of stress. On the other hand, they might have accidents because, again, they don't know the schedule. Maybe they're transitioning food depending on what their previous situation had for food versus what the rescue or what your household offers. 100% changing diets is very harmful on the stomach. It can be very distressful. So it can cause diarrhea, it can cause vomiting. So you might see some accidents and other things like that happening. They might be really lethargic. They might kind of be in that shutdown mode. On the opposite end, they might be super hyperactive and unable to settle. We've seen this with lots of different animals. They're not sure where it's safe to settle, so they can't. And it's going to take them a little while to get that feeling out and to feel comfortable in the space. So to help with these, again, routine is going to be key, but also providing stress relief for our animals. Enrichment is a big thing. And enrichment is just a fancy term for letting animals express their natural behaviors. And it significantly reduces stress because it is something that they instinctively want to do. So giving them an outlet for that helps. For example, you don't always have to feed animals in a bowl. You can have them work for it. So animals out in the wild need to hunt, they need to forage, they need to figure out how they're going to get their food. Using your brain is just as exhausting as moving your body. So food puzzles, foraging are going to be great ways to let them express that behavior. Now, when I talk about foraging, of course, I'm not saying like, go be free in the backyard and find some chipmunks. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, again, making them look for things. So for dogs, an easy one is scatter feeding. You take their kibble and you throw it on the ground and they have to go get it. This is really fun at this time of year out in the grass. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't had a chance to mow my lawn yet because it's been so wet. So the grass is really high. So I throw the kibble out there and it takes my dogs a really long time to find their kibble. And one thing I didn't realize, but makes perfect sense, is just the act of sniffing releases endorphins for our dogs. So just smelling stuff relieves stress. So having to go out there and sniff through all the blades of grass to find their pieces of kibble is really good for helping them feel better, because again, it's working their brains, it's getting those endorphins going, they're moving around, and they're also getting rewarded every single time they find a piece of kibble. So there's all sorts of DIY things that you can find online. Reach out to whatever organization you're fostering for additional resources. There are great ways that you can have your animals use food puzzles or foraging. Burrowing is going to be especially important for our little ones, our little prey animals, and even some of our other animals. So having places to hide where they can feel safe, or even with some of our animals, the ability to dig, and then of course to scratch and things to chew on. So providing appropriate outlets for those behaviors is going to make it easier and less likely for them to go after inappropriate items. Because trust me, if you do not provide a plaything for an animal will find a plaything on their own. And that's how we get severed cords and destroyed remote controls and tipped over water glasses, and it's not fun for anybody. So we never want our animals to be bored, and this is across the board, everybody. We don't want them bored, because they will make their own fun. And just like a toddler with a crayon, you probably won't like the results. So making sure that we give them those outlets is going to be very, very helpful. There are also ways to enhance their environment to make them feel more secure. A great one is pheromones. So this is specifically for dogs and cats. There are stress relieving pheromones that you can use, and it kind of looks like just those, like air filter things that you just plug into the wall, and we can't smell them, but the animals can. And having those pheromones in the air already makes them feel more comfortable. Other scents can also provide enrichment. So there are all sorts of scent games that you can play, especially with dogs and cats, getting them exposure to different things to explore, again, using their mental faculties there. And also their own scent can be very important. So for example, if you are bringing an animal into your home, one of the things that I would recommend is in their safe space, leave their carrier. Leave the carrier that you used for the cat or dog, whatever, or have a towel or blanket that's going to have their scent on, because being surrounded by their scent is going to be calming for them. Scent is so important for these animals. That is why you will see rabbits and cats mark things with their scent. So if you've ever had a cat like rub its nose and get snot on you, they're marking you as a friend. So they're literally rubbing you with their scent to be like, you're cool. I'm going to put my smell on you. And that means you're awesome. Rabbits do the same thing. They will chin. So they will rub their chin on things to mark it as their own. And having their scent around helps make them feel safe, right? Because you definitely wouldn't put your scent on a place where you don't feel safe. So that scent is an instinctual part that helps them build up their territory where they're going to feel safe. Soothing music classical music, there are all sorts of great speaker systems, or even just going on YouTube. There are classical music things that have like 15 hours. Not only does it help the brain relax, it also drowns out other sounds from the household or outside the household. So for example, if you live in a neighborhood that has dogs barking, playing that soothing music can help drown some of that out and insulate the animals from that stimuli. Also, experimenting with different kinds of surfaces for your animal. Some animals feel safer up high. This is especially true for cats. So giving them climbing towers and letting them get up high where they're going to feel more secure is a way to give them stress relief and also exercise. So it's a double whammy there. And understanding that when we are going into these spaces, we want to be mitigating the stress that we bring in with us. We want to build trust with our animals, okay? And letting them set the pace is going to be very, very helpful. Just like we don't reach into their safe space and pull them out, we don't force them to interact with us, because they're the ones that need to decide, yes, you are safe, I trust you, that's okay. So again, observing body language, I cannot stress this enough, and doing consent tests, which I'll talk about in just a minute. When I talked earlier about associating scary things with positive reinforcement, so the lawnmower, let's have treats. When we're not freaking out about the lawnmower, we can have treats. Also, associating ourselves with positive things is great. So being in the room when a meal is happening, and we're not asking them of anything, we're just associating ourselves with, we provide food and food is good, so that means we are good. One of my dogs is pretty nervous around children. When we're out around, kids always ask, oh, can I pet your dogs? And I'm like, no, sorry, you can't, but I will give you some treats and you can toss some treats to my dog to help him learn that kids are cool. And they're like, yeah, we want to teach him that kids are cool. Awesome. And then they throw treats. My dog is very highly food motivated. So he's like, ooh, this kid's kind of awesome. And from there, we can start to build that trust. Okay. Having low expectations is going to be very important as well. I really love cuddly animals. That's my thing. I love it when they're climbing all over me, and I love that. Not every animal is going to want to cuddle with you ever, and that's fine. Some animals are going to need to get to know you before they want to climb up in your lap, and that's okay. So when I have fosters here, I don't just scoop in, pick them up, and bring them in. Going back a couple slides, I do want to talk more about my buddy being here while we're talking, because so this was a foster that I had, and he was so shut down at the shelter. He would just sit in his bed and shake. He never left his bed that we could see. We know he left his bed at night because he would potty somewhere else in his kennel and he would eat a little bit of food. But if people were around, he stayed in his bed. So I brought him into foster because I have a spare bedroom, and he got the bedroom. He got to keep the bedroom. I put some potty pads down, and I didn't try to touch him for 2 days. I would bring food. I would sit with him while there was food there. For the first day and a half, he didn't even want to come out of his little crate while there was food, even though I'm sure that was very tempting. So then I started sitting at my desk while there was food, and he would come out and he would nibble a little bit and then he would go back in. Slowly, we started building up. Squeeze cheese was the way to his heart. So I would put some squeeze cheese on the floor by him. He would eat that, and then I got him to lick it off my finger. And we just built on that. Even when he was licking off my finger, I didn't try to touch him. I didn't want him to think that he owed me anything for the squeeze cheese. It took 6 days for him to come out of his shell. And when he did, it was amazing. It happened so fast. He made that first step. He came and sat with me on the floor, leaned up against me and let me pet him. We went outside. My spare room is on the second floor, so we hadn't even been going outside because I would have had to pick him up, and I didn't want to push those boundaries. So this time he followed me. We went outside, and he zoomed around the yard. It was like the best thing he had ever seen in his entire life. And this picture right here is he came back up to me after a zoomie and wanted to interact with me. So this right here shows the journey of those first couple stressful days and building that trust, keeping those expectations low and understanding that they are going from a very highly stressed state to being a real live dog. And it can take a couple of days for you to see who they really are. And that's okay. That's what he needed. And now he's in a foster home through a rescue partner, and he's doing great. So we are very, very happy for Bean. Okay, so going back to talking about building trust, we want to make sure that we do have those clear guidelines for our household members. With Bean, I told my husband, like, oh, you can put food in the room, but don't try to touch him. He was fine with that. We want to avoid guests and bringing in other strange dogs, things about that, because, you know, they're getting used to you. They don't need to also get used to, you know, your aunt, your uncle, your grandma, your grandpa, and neighbors 3 houses down. Okay, let them get used to you. Discuss body language and consent. When I talk to kids in schools, I always tell them, we don't have to touch every animal, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that when we are touching an animal, that they are okay with it. So doing consent tests, letting animals come up to you, giving them little pets, and then checking in with them to see if they're still okay with it. That's going to be key to helping to build that trust. Also, brainstorming ways to interact in low, you know, in ways that aren't going to be stressful. So for example, me sitting here at my desk while Bean was over there, I wasn't interacting with him. I wasn't looking at him. I wasn't trying to touch him, but I was in the room. Some kids get extra reading practice by reading aloud to their foster animals in that safe room. And 1, it's adorable. And 2, it builds that trust and it gets the animal used to that kid being there and shows that kids aren't bad. Kids are kind of cool. Kids can be calm. Kids can respect my boundaries. Not bad. Plus, a lot of times the kids come bearing treats. So that's even better. Now, if we are introducing to our resident animals, we do want to understand their group's policies. At DCAS, we recommend isolation and quarantine completely for 14 days. Okay, this protects your family and animals from disease or parasite transmission, and again allows for that full decompression phase. When you are ready to introduce to your resident animals, we recommend nice, slow steps. You know, you start with smells, you switch spaces that the animals are in without direct interaction, you have them meet through a barrier, you do brief encounters while they're restrained so that you can pull apart if you need to, if body language is telling you that somebody is stressed out. And then over periods of time, you make those encounters longer until you feel comfortable that everybody's going to be okay together. Now, how do we help our fosters succeed? Well, one of the main things that gets animals adopted is how they act and how good they are in a home. So, for example, this is a foster that I had, Beaker, and he had terrible table manners and was trying to hop up onto the table while we were eating. So that was one of the things that we and another foster worked with for him, because that is super annoying and not necessarily something every family is going to put up with. So training is going to be key. Now, I will say that everyone's definition of what makes an awesome pet is going to be different. I have had some pets that it was not hard for me to say goodbye to. I couldn't get them out the door fast enough, but their families loved them. And that's great, because I don't need to love every single foster pet. I just need to make sure they feel loved, right? And that's fine. But there are some things that people look for. working on house training, letting the people know where you are in the process of house training. Like, yeah, we have accidents every once in a while, but for the most part, we have the routine down. Basic behaviors, especially for dogs, it's going to be the sit, the stay, coming when called, stuff like that. Understanding their social ability. How well do they get along with others? And do they have preferences? Some animals do prefer men, some prefer women, some do okay with kids, some would rather kids, stay away. Understanding that is going to help you help your pet find their good home. And also making sure that they look okay. Grooming is going to be important. This is something you can work on with your organization, but also understanding like how much maintenance is this pet going to require? Like, oh, I brush them out, once a day for 20 minutes. Cool. That's how they look like this. Or, you know what? Nope. Had a bath when they first came in because they had fleas and I haven't touched them since. Great. Letting the adopter know what to expect. Now, one thing we want to know for sure is if we are looking at our fosters, what is an emergency and what are medical things to be on the lookout for? So again, not everything is going to need assistance right away. We provide our fosters with a guideline of what is an emergency, what can wait a little while, and what the next time you see us, that's fine kind of thing. Major changes to weight, behavior, elimination habits. Are they pooping or peeing way more frequently, way less frequently? Are they constipated? Have their eating and drinking habits changed? Those are things to monitor and to report into your organization. Again, knowing what their policy is. Do they have certain things they're looking for that constitute an emergency and a vet visit? Who do you talk to? If you need to go to an emergency place after hours, what does that payment look like? Is that you're getting reimbursed by the organization? Is that out of pocket? What's going on? Also, are there transportation options? We have a dog that needed to go to the vet and we were both working the next day. We were able to rely on other volunteers that we could hand the dog off so they could get the dog to the medical appointment. Understanding what's going on there. All right, guys, so I'm going to rush through the next couple slides. I'm so sorry this is taking longer than I expected because I just love foster animals so much. But marketing your foster. We want to focus on the positives, but in a truthful way, okay? So an animal that doesn't love cuddling, they're independent, all right? But we still don't want to tell people, oh yeah, this cat is going to cuddle with you and they're just going to love on you. No, we don't want to set false expectations. We want to make sure that we're being realistic and we want to use objective language. Oh, I've noticed that so-and-so loves it when I do this. Okay, is it the love or is it the food that you're providing? Is it coming back for more? What's going on? Use objective language and don't completely color over the bad parts. We need to know the bad parts too. You need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? Because again, realistic expectations are going to help them find a good fit. Now, adoption pictures. Oh, this is one of the biggest challenges because we're so busy enjoying our foster animals, we forget to record those moments. So we want to make sure that we are keeping them clear and in focus, good lighting. We want the animal to look like they're enjoying whatever is happening in the photo. We don't want them to look terrified if at all possible. Multiple angles is good, a full body shot to help people understand how big the animal is. And if they're doing something they love and showing off that personality, high marks. And even better if they're doing something with you, because then that helps the adopter understand how the animal interacts with the people in its life. So for these pictures, the one of the cat is good. It's cute. The lighting's kind of bad and it's a little on the bland side. I mean, it's a cat laying on a scratch post. Okay. The next one is better. It's got that full body shot. The lighting is clear. It's a rabbit chewing on a toy. That's cool. Rabbits, joy, and toys. The last one with the dog is my favorite because not only is the picture gorgeous, but they are playing tug with the person taking the photo. So they are interacting and showing off that personality, which is absolutely what you want. Now, when we get to the adoption process, understand that you may not have a say, and that's okay. Some organizations rely heavily on their fosters to help make those calls. Others do not. Others have whole teams of people going through the applications, talking and interviewing with the people, and they're the ones ultimately making those judgment calls. Absolutely share your observations. I think Bunny's perfect home would look like this. But there's actually no such thing as a perfect home. And any home is going to be better than the alternative, right? They can't stay in foster care forever. Ideally, we need to get them into a home. So even if it's not exactly what you had in mind, you know, if it's a puppy that's going into a household that, you know, maybe has older adults, that's okay. Older adults can still get a puppy. Not every puppy needs a child to play with. A lot of children probably shouldn't be playing with puppies based on how some children act. That's okay. It's important that they're going to get what they need, and we need to kind of let go of our ideals sometimes. So absolutely make sure that you're sharing with the organization what you're feeding and when, if that was up to you, any medications. Again, that expected transition behavior. What was the animal like in the first couple days in your home to help prepare the adopter? What are their favorite things to do? What are some great stress relief activities? And also any fun info. Like, oh, sometimes that cat falls asleep on her back on the couch and she snores so loudly. Like, you're going to have to turn up the television. I mean, that's hilarious. And it's going to help the adopter look for those fun things and have something to look forward to. And again, remember, the goal is goodbye. The goal is goodbye. The adoption process can be a little rocky sometimes, but that's what we want. We want to get them into homes so that we can take in our next foster and start the process of saving lives all over again. Okay? Wonderful. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm sorry that went a little long. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. Before we get to that, we do have some upcoming webinars that I'd like to plug really quickly. Caring for Senior Pets will be coming up on the 19th. And what I didn't put on here, which I absolutely should have, is we do have an in-person event at the shelter on the 20th. So May 20th, we have a kitten shower. So if you are interested in fostering cats or kittens for DuPage County Animal Services, you can join us on the 20th. 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. You can drop in, learn about fostering, or we have a wish list on our website if you'd just like to drop off a cute little gift for the kittens that we all know are coming. We would be more than happy to see you, and everybody will get a little thank you gift as well. So that's on the 20th from 5 to 7. Then we have a couple more webinars in June, helping homeless pets, and then DIY enrichment coming up the 3rd week of June. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sticking with me, everyone. Now, if at any point you guys have questions, this is what we're here for. So reach out at any time. My direct email is humane.education@dupageco.org. You can reach the shelter at 630-407-2800. At DCAS, our goal is for all the pets in DuPage County to be in happy, healthy homes. And how do we do that except through education? So if you have a question, absolutely feel free to reach out to us. And we are more than happy to talk to you, troubleshoot with you, and provide additional resources if you need them.